Once again, the narrative is wrong. No, Indiana did not expose itself as a coward by dropping Notre Dame off their schedule. Indiana exposed a playoff system that rewards cowardice. Now, I know exactly what half of you were thinking. Indiana backed out of a major home and home, looked at Notre Dame, look, oh, they're so soft, it's such a soft non-conference schedule, chose the easier path, yada, yada, yada. I get it. That criticism, look, it is somewhat fair. I will give somewhat fair, but as usual, does not communicate the entire story. So in this episode of the Big Ten Huddle, brought to you by FanDuel, I want to show you why the decision that Indiana made is a rational move and not just Indiana wimping out because of the rules of college football that it has created. We are going to look at what actually happened, why Indiana gains more by protecting its record than challenging itself, and why the same incentive could quietly spread across the entire Big Ten. So here is what changed. Indiana and Notre Dame were scheduled to play a home and home in 2030 and 2031. That series, gone. Out of here, out, it's gone, no, not coming back. Some are reporting this was all Indiana requesting the cancellation, and while Notre Dame's new four-game agreement with USC would make it illogical to think that was an Indiana decision. The Indiana side will describe it as largely mutual because Indiana wanted more clarity about the future of the playoff access, while Notre Dame preferred USC. That exact blame remains debated and is the problem that we get with a clearly biased national media. The result doesn't stink for fans. It does stink for fans, no doubt, but Indiana lost the biggest future non-conference game on its schedule. That sucks, no way around it, and some fans will accuse me of carrying water for Indiana. That's fine, but the issue here is not one Indiana created. It's one that has existed in college football for far too long. More on that in just a minute. The Hoosiers' remaining 2030 opponents are Indiana State and Delaware, with no non-conference opponent listed for 2031. Their schedules from 2026 through 2029 are filled with programs like North Texas, Howard, Western Kentucky, Kennesaw State, UMass, Austin Peay, Eastern Michigan, Ball State, and Eastern Illinois. That is not a schedule built to impress anybody in the FPI strength of schedule rankings. It's a schedule built to protect Indiana, and that is where this gets uncomfortable because unfortunately for the Hoosiers, they are not only going up against every opponent on their schedule, they are also going up against the perception of every fan in the country and the media members in the country too. The part of this conversation none of the media wants to discuss is how as long as the Big Ten championship game exists and the playoffs uses its own current selection approach, there may be little positive value in adding another Power Four conference game compared with the risk of another loss. We can hope things change at the national championship, but with the national championship that Indiana won. But considering Indiana is not even top five in many people's preseason rankings, I don't see that happening, and neither does Indiana, would seem like either. That is the heart of the issue here. Fans think schedules work like job interviews. Take the hard assignment, perform well, and you receive extra credit, or they'll call and say, man, he didn't get the job, but he was just a wonderful interview. But the playoff often works like a driving record. The committee notices the accident first. It may appreciate the dangerous road and, about the conditions, but the damage remains on the report, and really that's all that matters. It doesn't matter how well you drove, the damage is already there. It doesn't matter how well you played, the large majority of the time. If you have losses, more losses than another Power 4 team, you will be below them in the rankings, unless, of course, you're Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, teams like that. In those situations, a one-loss Big Ten team usually feels safe. A two-loss Big Ten team still has a strong argument, but maybe not totally safe. And a three-loss Big Ten team starts depending on chaos, reputation, conference strength, and the committee's mood on it all, quite frankly. But the equation for Indiana is different. A one-loss Indiana team has a strong argument, but doesn't feel entirely safe. That's why the Notre Dame game could be the difference between those categories. Indiana is already playing a Big Ten schedule schedule, dealing with conference opponents, travel, injuries, and the November grind of everything, of the weather and stuff like that as well. So what is the upside of voluntarily adding another playoff level opponent? Opposing fans will say the upside is obvious, better football, better atmosphere, more respect, a chance to prove the program belongs. Administrators will answer with just one word: access. That is the conflict. Access. Fans want games worth watching. Of course, they want to see the big games and they want to see the big noon kickoff, all that stuff. Programs want a path worth surviving. And right now, those goals are not always the same. The most important question is not whether Indiana is scared of Notre Dame. The important question is whether Indiana believes the committee would reward the risk enough to justify taking it. The evidence it suggests the answer is no, especially for a historically bad program like Indiana. Yes, they just won the national championship, but like I said, other teams win the national championship and they're 1 or 2 in the polls. Indiana, they're outside the top 5 because people still look at the history. Of course, the SEC fans will say serious programs eventually have to accept serious scrutiny out one of their mouths. They'll say that outside one of their mouths, and then they'll complain that Texas missed the playoffs because they faced Ohio State and out of the other side of their mouths. You cannot demand teams play tough out of conference schedules and then act shocked when the rationale is not there to do it when you complain about hard out of conference games, and that's why a team didn't make the college football playoffs. The Hoosiers are entering a phase where their every choice will be scrutinized because other programs, quite frankly, are jealous. They're jealous of their success. They're jealous of their schedule. They're jealous of their coach. And of course, the national media will also try to placate to the fans, and to the Indiana fans they'll try to placate to the Indiana fans saying, oh, big games are what moves tickets and that's what gets it done. And yet Indiana's 2026 season tickets were sold out. So that falls flat once again because argument is quite simple. If the fans are coming, the program is winning, and the playoff value for the record, the athletic department has little immediate reason to change. That is not romantic, but it is efficient. It's the right answer. Indiana's playoff blueprint is brutally rational. Right? Brutally rational. Do not schedule a game that can turn 2 losses into 3 unless the committee clearly rewards the risk. That is why this matters beyond Bloomington. A Big Ten team already faces enough strong opponents to build a respectable resume. They might not all be ranked, but I talked about that on another episode where I exposed the SEC's circle of farming ranked wins and all that stuff. On another episode, you can click it above. I got it right here on the top, and it'll pop out. You can click it there, but wait until the end of the episode. So the safest formula becomes survive the league, avoid unnecessary non-conference danger, and let somebody else prove how brave they are. And then simultaneously whine about how hard their schedule is at SEC Media Days. They are the true definition of wanting their cake and eat it too. If that blueprint works, Indiana will not be the last team to use it. The playoff tries to say it wants strength of schedule, but the incentives just keep whispering, just do not lose. That's what it all talks about. And that is where the Big Ten has a real problem. The conference is discussing bigger structural changes, possibly a larger playoff, possibly eliminating the conference championship game, and possibly moving to 10 conference games. Kirkcinetti himself said at Big Ten Media Days that scheduling may eventually become standardized because the Big Ten and the SEC sit above the rest of the sport. Standardization could mean a number of things. It could mean requiring one Power 4 non-conference opponent. It could mean conference-wide scheduling agreements, with the SEC. It could mean a Big Ten SEC, challenge of some sort that they create, which I would love. That would be awesome. Or it could mean a 10-game Big Ten schedule makes the entire argument irrelevant because every school already has another major conference game built in. But until the playoff changes, Indiana is showing everybody the loophole. And Tony Petitti even said they're not going to require a out-of-conference Power 4 opponent until the playoff changes, and then they will explore that possibility. The conference tells programs to schedule aggressively. Television wants better matchups, of course. Fans want Notre Dame and Bloomington, not Delaware and Bloomington, right? That's all good, but when the playoff standings arrive, the first thing everybody counts is the losses, not the strength, not the entertainment, the losses. That is how you create cowardice incentives without ever writing the word cowardice in the rules. Because when you line up all the teams in the playoff rankings basically by who has the most losses to the least amount of loss, or the least amount of losses to the most losses, that's what you start to get. And that is what the playoff committee has been doing for far too long now, other than the SEC teams that they want to rise up above others. You simply make the punishment for losing clearer than the reward for trying. Indiana fans will point out that the series was still 4 years away, and schedules change constantly. The Hoosiers may find another Power 4 opponent, although replacing Notre Dame on not relatively short notice, but could be somewhat short notice, could be difficult. And that's fair. This is not a declaration that Indiana will never schedule anybody again. It's a warning about what the program has no incentive to do right now, and the playoff system has to decide which behavior it actually wants. If the committee wants difficult non-conference games, it must show that a competitive loss against Notre Dame is not treated the same as a loss to a mediocre opponent or a win against UMass, right? If it cannot do that, stop acting surprised when programs schedule for record preservation. I don't like it either. I'm just being honest with you. I want to see the Big Ten versus SEC challenge games. The difference is that I understand it, and I don't place the blame game on the team. I place the blame on the decision makers because they are the ones to blame. Two things can be true. Indiana made the smart playoff decision, and it's disappointing for the fans, right? Maybe not for IU fans because they're still going to the games, they're still selling it out, but for the national fans who do want to see Indiana play hard games. Both can be true. Dropping Notre Dame will protect Indiana's record. It may improve the Hoosiers' odds of reaching the playoff. It may even be exactly what a reasonable athletic department should do under the current rules, but Indiana fans lost a historic game. Bloomington has not hosted Notre Dame since 1950. That opportunity completely disappeared because college football has taught programs that protecting a resume matters more than creating a memory. Now, I do not blame, fans for being angry over this, just like you should not blame IU for scheduling, being rational. But again, two things can be true. So what should happen next? What needs to happen to fix things like this, to get better out of conference scheduled games? What needs to happen? Well, first, the playoff needs to expand to 24 teams, not only for more meaningful out of conference games, but for more access to prove who is the best team on the field, not on the scheduling paper, and to make postseason football more meaningful and to have less opt-outs, so some of those teams that normally would go to a bowl game and have opt-outs can now be in the playoffs and actually have teams, players play and not opt out. Second, after that happens, the Big Ten needs a consistent scheduling standard. Do not let one team play a national heavyweight while another builds a runway of guaranteed wins and then judge them as though the resumes were created equally. Whether that is forcing an out-of-conference opponent versus a P4 team or a 10th conference game, once the playoffs expand, the schedule standards can expand as well. Because the system is not built on results right now, it's built on perception. And that current system told the Hoosiers that the smartest road may actually be the safest road. It's not a scandal, right? Not that Indiana, listen, the college football keeps giving every ambitious program the same advice. Indiana's Notre Dame decision is disappointing for fans, for sure, right? National fans would like to see it different. Understandable for the program and revealing for the playoffs. So tell me this. Should Indiana be required to replace Notre Dame with another Power 4 opponent, or would you protect the playoff path as well? Would love to hear what your thoughts are. Please do subscribe for more straight Big Ten talk, Big Ten analysis here at the Big Ten Huddle. And join us here at the Big Ten Huddle on Sunday and Tuesday nights live with me and Zach, talking everything Big Ten, rankings, perception, all those things, talking about it all at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for listening and watching. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.